Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dear viewers, today we begin a new topic, which is topic number 8. And in this topic, we shall discuss a narrative in which Uthman radiallahu anhu in his own times is reported to have placed Surah Anfal and Surah Tawbah together on the basis of his own judgment and discretion, because he contended at that time that he did not have any guidance in this regard from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and therefore he actually placed the two together, making them a single surah. So there are narratives in this regard which have been reported, and we shall take a look at these narratives, critically analyze them, and see how they stand to the test of historical criticism. And it is one of the reasons, if this narrative is found true, that people think that Uthman was given the permission, or at least he did exercise his discretion in arranging the Qur'an. And there are some authorities who think that the arrangement of the Qur'an, and when we say the arrangement, we refer to the surah arrangement. So the surah arrangement perhaps was left to the discretion of the Sahaba or the companions. And one of the bases for this reason is this narrative that we are going to analyze in this talk. Now, let me read before you a typical text of this narrative. And this narrative is recorded, which I'm reading before you, is recorded in the Sunan of Imam Tirmizi, and it is reported by Abdullah bin Abbas. And the words are, عن ابن عباس حدثنا ابن عباس قال قلت لعثمان بن عفان ما حملكم أن عمدتم إلى الأنفال وهي من المثاني وإلى البراء وهي من المئين فقرنتم بينهما ولم تكتبوا بينهما سطر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوضعتموها في السبع الطول ما حملكم على ذلك فقال عثمان كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مما يأتي عليه الزمان وهو تنزل عليه السور ذوات العدد فكان إذا نزل عليه الشيء دعا بعد من كان يكتب فيقول ضعوا هؤلاء الآيات في السورة التي يذكر فيها كذا وكذا وإذا نزلت عليه الآية فيقول ضعوا هذه الآية في السورة التي يذكر فيها كذا وكذا. وكانت الأنفال من أوائل ما أنزلت بالمدينة وكانت براءة في آخر القرآن وكانت قصتها شبيهة بقصتها فظننت أنها منها فقبض رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ولم يبين لنا أنها منها فمن أجل ذلك قرنت بينهما ولم أكتب بينهما سطر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوضعتها في السبع الطول. قال أبو عيسى هذا حديث حسن صحيح لا نعرفه إلا من حديث عوف عن يزيد الفارسي عن ابن عباس ويزيد الفارسي قد روى عن ابن عباس غير حديث ويقال هو يزيد بن هرمز ويزيد الرقاشي هو يزيد بن أبان الرقاشي ولم يدرك ابن عباس إنما روى عن أنس بن مالك وكلاهما من أهل البصرة ويزيد الفارسي أقدم من يزيد الرقاشي. Yazid al-Farsi reports that Abdullah ibn Abbas said, I asked Uthman, what made you position together Surah Anfal, which is among the Mathani, and Surah Bara, which is among the Me'un surahs, and not write the Basmala between them? And you placed the two among the Sabatawal. What induced you to this? Uthman replied, there were times in the life of the Prophet when many surahs would be simultaneously revealed to him. When something would be revealed to him, he would call some of those who used to write in front of him and say, place this section of verses in the surah in which such and such an incident is mentioned. And similarly, when a single verse would be revealed, he would say, place it in the surah in which such incident is mentioned. Surah Anfal was among the first surahs revealed in Medina, and Surah Bara was the last surah revealed, and both mentioned the same topic. So I thought that Surah Bara was part of Surah Anfal, and the Prophet died without specifying this. So because of this, I positioned them together and did not write the Basmala and placed the two among the Sabatawal. Abu Isa, who of course is Imam Tirmizi, Abu Isa said, the narrative is Hasanun Sahihun. We only know it through Auf, who reports it from Yazid al-Farsi, who reports it from Abdullah ibn Abbas. And Yazid al-Farsi has more than one narrative from Ibn Abbas, and it has been said that he is Yazid ibn Hurmuz. And Yazid al-Rakashi is in fact Yazid ibn Aban al-Rakashi. and he has not met Ibn Abbas. He has narrated from Anas ibn Malik, and both of them belong to Basra. And Yazid al-Farisi lived much earlier than Yazid al-Raqashi. So this, viewers, is a very brief, concise translation of the narrative which I just read out before you, vis-a-vis Imam Tirmidhi's his book Jami' Tirmidhi. Now, let us analyze this narrative and see what questions arise both on the text as well as on the isnad of this narrative. Also, let me recap that it was because of the fact that these two surahs in the mind of Uthman had similar topics that he was induced to place them together, as is evident from this narrative. And he said that since he did not have any guidance in this regard from the Prophet, so because of a similarity of topics between the two surahs, he placed them together and did not write the basmala, or the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the formulaic expression with which each surah begins. Now, the first criticism which I am going to put forward before you has been raised by Abdul Latif al-Rahmani. Now, he says that this narrative clearly tells us two things. The first thing that it tells us is that whenever a surah or a part of a surah would be revealed, the Prophet would call for some of his scribes and tell him or tell them to write it at a particular place or in a particular surah. And then he also says that this narrative itself says that Surah Bara was revealed later and was not made part of Surah Anfal, which was revealed much earlier. So therefore, the words which we can clearly see from the narrative is Al-Anfal min awail ma unzilat bil Madina. Surah Anfal was amongst the earliest surahs which were revealed in Medina, and the words are وَكَانَتْ بَرَاءً مِنْ آخِرِ الْقُرْآنِ, and Bara was revealed at the end of the Qur'an. So he says that this is an internal contradiction which arises within the narrative, from within the narrative. On the one hand, it says that the Prophet would have the surahs and the verses as soon as they were revealed, written, and he would specify the place at which they were written. And he also says that these two surahs were revealed in separate periods of time. So therefore, he says that these two things cannot be coexistent. So on the one hand, he would have told his scribes to write whatever has been revealed at a particular place, and if it had been revealed later, then it obviously means that it was not part of it. So therefore, he says that this is a very stark contradiction which is found within the narrative and which makes it questionable. And he also says that as far as this fact is concerned, that Uthman thought that since these two surahs were similar in topic, they had common topics, so therefore they should be placed together. He says that this is something again which is very strange, because there are surahs which have similar topics. We have several examples from the Qur'an, but this similarity can only be of use in placing or in the coexistence if we have a divine directive of placing similar surahs or similar verses of surahs together. In the absence of such a divine directive, even if there is a similarity between two surahs, it's not enough or sufficient reason for someone to place them together, and therefore he says that this is something which Uthman would never have done. And similarity of topic is something which can only be of use if if these verses have been specified divinely or by the Prophet that they have to be placed together. Otherwise, similarity of topic is not sufficient basis to place two similar verses or two similar surahs together. So this is the first point of criticism which Abdul Latif Rahmani has raised. Now, the second point of criticism which some other authorities have also raised is that Surah Tawbah and Surah Anfal are two distinct and separate surahs of the Qur'an, and they were well known that they are two distinct and separate surahs. So thus, for example, Tahawi, while analyzing this narrative, says that it shows that in the opinion of Uthman, Surah Anfal and Surah Tawbah were a single surah, while Ibn Abbas, because the question had arisen in the mind of Ibn Abbas, was of the opinion that the two were distinct surahs. So he says that he goes on to conclude that the opinion of Ibn Abbas is correct. This is what Tahawi says. And he says that some of the reasons because of which he has been led to believe this is that there are some other narratives which say so, or which at least allude to this fact. Now, the first narrative that he has recited in this regard is from himself, from his own book, Sharh Mushkil al-Athar. So Tahawi's own book, Sharh Mushkil al-Athar, is in that book we find this narrative. So the words are نُحَذِّبُ ثَلَاثَ سُوَرْ وَخَمْسَ سُوَرْ وَسَبْعَ سُوَرْ وَتِسْعَ سُوَرْ وَإِحْدَى عَشْرَ سُورَةً وَثَلَاثَ عَشْرَةَ سُورَةً وَحِزْبَ مَا بَيْنَ الْمُفَصَّلِ وَأَسْفَلِ. We divided into 7 groups. So this is what this actually is a narrative, which was actually this narrative is actually something in which the companions actually are seen to divide the Quran in 7 portions. So when they were asked by Aus ibn Huzaifa about this division, they replied. So what I have just read out before you is the reply of the companions to a question by Aus ibn Huzaifa, which related to the arrangement of the surahs in the Quran. So the translation of this relevant part is, we divided into 7 portions thus: 3 surahs, 5 surahs, 7 surahs, 9, 11, and 13 surahs, and then the last portion which extends from the Mufassal to the end. So while referring to the above narrative, At-Tahawi says that only if Surah Anfal and Surah Tawbah are considered to be distinct surahs does the scheme of surahs spelled out in the above narrative hold ground. So unless we regard these surahs to be 2 separate surahs, this scheme which has been narrated by the companions on the question posed to them by Aus ibn Huzaifa is not satisfied, is not fulfilled. The second point which is raised in this regard is that, which actually Tahawi has raised in this regard, is that Surah Anfal and Surah Tawbah were revealed at different times, and therefore this shows that there were 2 distinct surahs. While the former was revealed at the time of the Battle of Badr, the latter was the last complete surah to be revealed. So the narrative that he cites in this regard is from Bara ibn Azib, and this has been cited by Tahawi himself in his own book. So the words are, سمعت البراء يقول آخر آية نزلت يستفتونك قل الله يفتيكم في الكلالة وآخر سورة نزلت براءة. And this has been reported by Abu Ishaq al-Sabi'i from Bara. So Abu Ishaq said, I heard Bara ibn Azib say, the last verse to be revealed was يستفتونك قل الله يفتيكم في الكلالة, that which is of course a verse of Surah An-Nisa. And the last surah revealed was Surah Bara. So he says this is the one of the narratives that Tahawi cites, or the second narrative, if I am to be precise, which he cites to tell us that Surah Bara and Surah Anfal were 2 distinct surahs. Now, in this regard, the third narrative that he cites is also quoted in his own book, Sharh Mushkil al-Asar. And the words are, and this narrative is by Wasila ibn Asqa. So the words are, and Wasila ibn Asqa, ابن الأسقى أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أعطيت مكان التوراة السبع وأعطيت مكان الزبور مئين وأعطيت مكان الإنجيل المثاني وفضلت بالمفصل. Wasil ibn al-Asqa says that the Prophet said, I have been given the Sabr in place of the Torah, the Me'un in place of the Psalms, and the Masani in place of the Injil, and have further been given the Mufassal. Now, Tahawi makes this point that Surah Anfal belongs to the Masani surahs and Surah Tawbah belongs to the Tiwal surahs. Therefore, they are 2 distinct surahs. So this is the point that he makes here. Now, further extended this discussion, if we add Rahmani's own view also, he has also cited the above narratives which Tahawi I have just cited before you on the authority of Tahawi, and he has added some additional content as well. So Rahmani has added some additional content, and the point that he's making together with Tahawi is that these are 2 separate distinct surahs already known by 2 of their distinct names, or they are known as 2 separate surahs in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So some of the narrative that he cites, I am now going to cite before you. The first of them is recorded in the Al-Awsat of At-Tabarani. So the words are, An Ali radiyallahu anhu qal, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المنافق لا يحفظ سورة هود وبراءة وياسين والدخان وعما يتساءلون. It is recorded in the Al-Awsat of At-Tabarani that the Prophet said, a hypocrite can never learn Surah Hud, Surah Bara'a, Surah Yasin, Surah Dukhan, and Surah Amma Yatasa'alun. So this is the first additional narrative which Rahmani cites, besides the 3 which I have already quoted on the authority of Tahawi. The second that he cites is recorded also In the first one is on the authority of Al-Mujam Al-Awsat of Tabarani, and this second one is actually recorded by Suyuti in his Al-Durr al-Mansur. So the words are, عن أبي ذر رضي الله عنه قال دخلت المسجد يوم الجمعة والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يخطب فجلست قريبا من أبي بن كعب رضي الله عنه فقرأ النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سورة براءة. Abu Zar said that I entered the mosque on a Friday when Muhammad was delivering the sermon. I went and sat near Ubay. The Prophet recited Surah Bara'ah. The third narrative, the third additional narrative that Rahmani cites is again also recorded in Suyuti's Ad-Durr al-Mansur, and the words are this narrative is from Abi Atiyah al-Hamazani. He says, قال كتب عمر رضي الله عنه تعلموا سورة البراءة وعلموا نساءكم سورة النور. So Umar ibn al-Khattab had written the directive, learn Surah Bara'ah and teach your women Surah Nur. So this, of course, according to him, is sufficient reason to know that these are two separate and distinct surahs. And had they not been defined, these narratives would not have come into being. So therefore he says that even the question asked by Ibn Abbas in the narrative under discussion shows that they were two distinct surahs. Otherwise, Ibn Abbas would never have posed this question to Abdullah ibn Abbas. And viewers, I think that these points, that these two criticisms which I have just presented before you, both are very strong critiques by our two worthy scholars of the past, and therefore we need to pay heed to what they have criticized in this regard. Now, the third point, which is made by Rahmani also, it is actually raised by him. He says that the narrative recorded in the Al-Jami al-Sahih of Imam Bukhari, which mentions the Uthmanic collection of the Qur'an, says that he merely copied out what was in the Mus'haf of Abu Bakr, what he had actually asked Zayd ibn Sabit to compile. So the task of Uthman was that he was merely copying out the Mus'haf which resided in his time with Hafsa, which was originally written on the authority of Abu Bakr, as he had directed Zayd ibn Sabit to write it. And therefore, copying out would automatically mean that he is placing Surah Anfal and Surah Tawbah the way they were written, in their sequence and in the arrangement they were written in the Mus'haf of Hafsa. So therefore, how would the question arise of Uthman using his discretion or his own judgment in placing the two surahs together, because they had already been placed together or adjacent in the Mus'haf compiled by Zayd ibn Sabit for Abu Bakr, and which in the times of Uthman was with Hafsa anha, and he had called for that Mus'haf. So therefore he says that the narrative under discussion recorded by Imam Bukhari, this particular narrative cannot be accepted, because it tells us that Uthman actually had gone on to exercise his own judgment, whereas there's no such impact found in the earlier narratives in his previous times, in which we know that he was merely copying out the narrative, the Mus'haf of Hafsa anha. And this, of course, is also a valid, very, very valid objection which he has raised. The third or the fourth point of critique on the text of this narrative is also raised by Rahmani in his Tarikh al-Quran, and he says that Muslims have been very diligent in preserving the Quran and the words which were written. So how could they have left out the basmala if it had been part of a surah? So if there is no basmala found at the top of Surah Bara'ah, and it was merely because Uthman thought that the two surahs are actually the same, and therefore he did not write the basmala, this is something which is not tenable, because basmala not being written in the beginning of surah is something which could have only happened if it had not been revealed at the beginning of that surah. If it had been revealed at the beginning of the surah, it had to be there. No one had the authority to remove it, and therefore this is the fourth point which Rahmani has raised. Viewers, we now come to the chain of narration, or the isnad of this narrative, and I shall try one part of my talk would be completed here when I refer to some aspects of this criticism which relates to the chain of narration. And inshallah, in the next episode, we shall complete the rest of the talk which relates to this criticism on the chain of narration. But as far as this talk is concerned, we'll begin with this criticism on the chain of narration. Now, the first point of critique on this chain of narration is that it has suspect narrators. And Yazid al-Farsi and Auf ibn Abi Jamila, who exist in all the variants of this narrative, are suspect. So there are two people, Yazid al-Farsi and Auf ibn Abi Jamila. Both of them are suspect. And we shall take a look at both of these people, both of these personnel, the way their biographies have been recorded or put forth in one of the prominent hadith biographies or manuals which relate to Rijal. So let's begin with Yazid al-Farsi. Now, Rahmani and Ahmad Muhammad Shakir say that according to reports of the Rijal authorities, the personality of Yazid al-Farsi, which is the sole narrator from Ibn Abbas, is suspect. So we have to bear this in mind, that the only person narrating this narrative, according to Rahmani, from Ibn Abbas is Yazid al-Farsi, and his personality is suspect. So following are the reports that he contends should be considered by us. So Al-Bukhari records, قال لي علي قال عبد الرحمن يزيد الفارسي هو ابن هرمز قال فذكرته ليحيى فلم يعرف. Ali here refers to Ali ibn al-Madini, the celebrated Rijal authority. So Ali ibn al-Madini told me, Abdul Rahman, and here Abdul Rahman is of course Abdul Rahman ibn al-Mahdi. So Abdul Rahman ibn al-Mahdi said that Yazid al-Farsi is Yazid ibn Hurmuz. I mentioned this fact to Yahya, and here Yahya of course means Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, and he did not corroborate it. So Ibn Hajar records in his Tahzib al-Tahzib, وقال ابن أبي حاتم اختلفوا هل هو يزيد الفارسي أو غيره فقال ابن مهدي وأحمد هو ابن هرمز وأنكر يحيى بن سعيد القطان أن يكون واحدا وسمعت أبي يقول يزيد بن هرمز هذا ليس بيزيد الفارسي هو سواه. Ibn Abi Hatim said, people have differed whether Yazid ibn Hurmuz is Yazid al-Farsi or someone else. Ibn Mahdi and Ahmad say that he is Ibn Hurmuz, while Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan has rejected the fact that these two are the same. And I have heard my father say that Yazid ibn Hurmuz is not Yazid al-Farsi. He is a different person. Ibn Hurmuz is the father of Abdullah ibn Yazid ibn Hurmuz. So this is what these authorities have surmised regarding the personality of Yazid al-Farsi. Now, Al-Bukhari, he has mentioned Yazid ibn Hurmuz in his Az-Zu'afa, As-Saghir. So this is how he mentions Yazid ibn al-Hurmuz. Shakir and Rahmani conclude from the above data that Yazid al-Farsi is not a well-known person, and authorities like Ibn Mahdi, Ahmad bin Hanbal and Al-Bukhari are not certain whether he is Yazid ibn Hurmuz or someone else. So one category of authorities is someone who are not sure if Yazid al-Farsi is the same as Yazid ibn Hurmuz or they are different. So they go on to say that such weakness, this narrative cannot be accepted, because if it is not known who the person of Yazid al-Farsi is, so therefore we cannot accept this narrative. Now, Rahmani further points out that with the little information that we find about Yazid al-Farsi in Rijal books, the only thing known is that he narrates from Ibn Abbas, and Abu Hatim comments about him. The comments of Abu Hatim about him are la ba'sa bihi. And moreover, Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim have not taken any narrative from him. So he finally concludes that in the absence of Imam Muslim, Imam Bukhari not taking any narrative from him itself means that he is a person who is not very, very reliable. So viewers, till now we have discussed the critique on Yazid al-Farsi as has been put forth by some of our earlier authorities. Inshallah, we'll continue this discussion on the Isnad in the next episode of this talk. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.